Great. Let's get started. So again, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for Quarantunity, Helping Athletes Find Focus During Transition with Dr. Richard Oelberger. My name is Mackenzie Mager, and I'm the Associate Program Officer at Maccabi USA. I am very happy to introduce tonight's featured guest speaker, Dr. Oelberger. Dr. Richard is one of the coaches on the Mindurance platform. He is a licensed clinical psychologist and performance consultant based in California. His history with sports and a black belt in martial arts lends to his unique psychological style and passion for working with athletes. Dr. Richard helps his clients manage stress associated with elite performance, as well as helps them leverage the mental element of success. When not working with athletes and performers, Dr. Richard hosts a podcast called Richard Listens, where he dives into the psychological aspect of sport, business, and life. Now, before turning this over to Dr. Richard, I've been asked to read the following statement. This program is for informational purposes only. Statements, suggestions, diagnoses, treatments, and solutions discussed during this session are for informational purposes only. Maccabi USA bears no liability or responsibility for this discussion. Dr. Oelberger, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mackenzie. And first, let me say it's an honor to be here on behalf of Maccabi USA. I wouldn't be here as a clinical psychologist if it wasn't for a personal connection to what it means to be connected to being a Maccabi athlete, and particular this time of year. It's like in my bones, the lead up to the games and the experience of being an athlete at the junior level and continuing to want to stay attached and keep the Maccabi spirit alive through both my own athletic career into my 40s and through my children. So I appreciate all of you for making time, and I'm glad to be your evening entertainment today. And hopefully we can invite some fun and interactive discussion in the chat because we know any kind of learning or discussion we have really is fostered by the inclusion of all of your ideas and perspectives as they cover many different sports and perspectives, whether you be a parent, coach, or an athlete. I think I need to share my screen with you now. Yeah. Okay. Without further ado, our topic tonight, quarantunity, obviously the hybrid of being in quarantine and opportunity, and particularly focused on athletes in transition. And I say this because, a transition is any kind of experience that could be unexpected or going from one situation to another. So I try to reframe this entire quarantine as a transition, as you would graduating from college, as you would from going from one team to another, as you would an injury perhaps, or a change in role, because it's required so much reflection and change that's really been common to all of us in one way or another, even though those changes may not look the same. Okay, so quarantine, isolation, injuries, they're all for the birds, right? The one thing that's in common with these experiences that I'm listing here as a clinical psychologist and as a performance psychologist is that I don't think anybody wants to go through them, and if they can avoid them, they would stave them off at all costs. And as a younger athlete, maybe we're fortunate enough not to go through some of the major hurdles in life. But, as we go on in life, there's certain things that really cause us to go through a change in emotional experience, in refiguring out who we are in our identity, and that are life-defining moments. So some of the experiences that are common, especially when things stop suddenly, a degree of shock, roller coaster of emotions, particularly if you think quarantine's over, it's safe, I can go play. Can I go practice? No, I can't. right? The changes that are happening, the confusion is can be a lot for anybody, let alone an athlete who's preteen or collegiate level, or who's planning for their senior year or planning to get ready to go and play in the Maccabi games. And this was or Olympic games. So we'll get to some of those events later that have been affected. As I mentioned, your identity. Um, Athletes' identity can be this comforting place, especially if you find strength, if you find oneness in your Maccabi experience, in your high school experience. Your identity in whatever sport you're in is what gives you strength. It's what gives you a sense of relationships to others, if you've been lucky enough to find a sport or sports. So being challenged to not participate is going to invite you to dig deeper. So I just want to reframe that. If everyone's going through a period of kind of confusion or fear around that, or even some sadness around that, those are all completely normal emotions right now. In fact, as we'll get to later, that there could be a cycle of that kind of experience. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, grief, we don't wish this upon anybody, but at some point we've all known somebody, or as we go on in life, have experienced loss in some way or another. So we'll get into the stages of what grief looks like. But it can be something, when you lose your season, when you lose your opportunity to play, the stages of grief are real. And it's something that has been gone through this experience, through this quarantine. And the challenge being, if you don't have access to teammates or supports, that it's harder to process this range of emotions without connectivity to one another, and without those who we really want to experience all the highs, joys, and meaning as well. Setbacks we've all been through. We've all lost a game. We've all had a game, moved due to weather. But so there are some skills. If we learn how to handle some of the smaller setbacks, if we get better at dealing with some of the minor changes in life, that can be generalized these bigger experiences. But you may notice yourself during this quarantine where even small changes, your Target delivery, your food shopping has been thrown off. You can't even get the right food order when you do order takeout and you're able to get some food from a nearby restaurant. These things can really trigger you during this time. And there's so much changing so rapidly that it can bring out a lot of things that, as athletes, as parents, as coaches, we don't want to feel out of control. We don't want to feel like we cannot influence or predict what's going on. So again, these emotions, and these disappointments, anything, even saying, I just got the news today, they canceled, my son's Little League for sure. Even as a parent, it was just a deep sadness that happens just to get that final news, even though I kind of knew it was there. So athletes may be holding on to this. What if we come back? What if we can still get our season in? So, as much as it's important to have hope, we have to be there for, our players, and realizing that they can be going through these frustrations, these disappointments recurrently as things change and move. So it goes to like the complexity of the situation that we're in the quarantine with COVID-19. Okay, and here's the groups, right? Does this list even begin to start? Who's been impacted? Probably not. But we know, baseball season. If anyone's seen the Korean Baseball League going on ESPN, if you're up like me at midnight with nobody in the stands and 3 players in the dugout and 2 of them have a mask on. So I guess that's one way in which we might continue. And some have heard of moving everyone to Arizona. So it's amazing what we might do to preserve sport, and the lengths now that we have to go to be considerate and respectful and show that human dignity of health and making sure we're keeping others safe, which go into sports. So these kind of diametrically opposed parts of being an athlete, one, the need to compete, and one, to respect other people and treat them with sportsmanship and respect. So Olympic hopefuls, we had the NHL hockey season, NBA, I think we'd be probably in the playoffs right now, if not the finals. March Madness, if you're like me, that was an annual holiday where I took off school. Don't tell my parents. But you have juniors and seniors who have played their entire lives just to be a part of that experience. And then we have, right, the Maccabi, being moved or postponed rather. Track field, tennis. We had people on the way to tennis tournaments, top teams in the nation, undefeated, and suddenly things have been changed. So everybody and everything has been impacted in some way. And if you're fortunate to have not been impacted or figured out a way to keep going, it's a blessing. But you probably know another athlete who has been. So this is a great equalizer, is what they're referring to this quarantine as. Okay, here we have Superman, who's a little bit enthusiastic about the gym, his pump, what he's doing, right? Really, I want to bring this down to the simplest levels for all of you today. Why do we play? As somebody who looks at the body and how it processes emotions, the biggest misnomer when I work with athletes is we think kind of that if we think positive, that if we just try and have a good attitude, that it can affect the way we feel. And so and that that's a common mistake. We all do it. We want our thoughts to be better, but play, movement, right, activity is really important in how we live. It's being able to take calm breaths, being able to reset our nervous system, being able to let go of stress is important for health. It's important for survival. It's important for your ability to have fun and connect, right? So it's important to remember this, right? Because as much as everything is telling us to stay inside and be safe and don't do things, we have this other operating system which we just can't ignore, especially if you're an athlete and this is part of your DNA. So no matter what age you are, if you're 5 years old, if you're 65 and above, movement, connection, orientation to safety, okay, it's all in order to promote creativity and healthy living. So I think I've heard someone say, if you can't get out, you should get outside every day and look at a landscape to see, the difference between the trees and the homes and people at a distance, just to kind of reset the ways in which we exist within our own bodies and feel a sense of peace, even amidst a time of tremendous change. And if you can't get outside, I talked to some of our athletes on the call today, and they were looking out the window, or Mackenzie was on the call, and she's looking outside at pouring rain. She's like, easy for you to say out there in California, Richard, right? So if you can't get outside, even looking at a landscape, I know Netflix is filled right now with Earth shows and different discoveries, and that's okay too. Anything that takes your mind into a sense of nature, and that's a healthy distraction, and might be a good way to just kind of let yourself reduce some of the intense feelings that build up. So don't worry, none of your teammates will make fun of you if you're watching the Earth Channel at this time. What happens though? That's the big question. What happens when we cannot predict, escape, or move? So that's when we start to get to some of what we call stress, frustration. We have our energy kind of being held in, and some of the other terms, right? Anxiety, depression. So basically, if you're feeling cloudy, if there's just so many emotions you can't even describe them, we don't have to label them today, but this is kind of the scenario that brings us about. We're not able to play. We're not able to go. Anything that blocks our ability to move and play. And those emotions are telling us that there's something wrong, right? And that we need this, that there's a healthy need being ignored, and any way you can find to achieve it in whatever small way will help to do that. So I thought I would, just bring a little bit of levity into the presentation, just give a little bit of the top 10, one of the top 10 sports rants of all time, from Herm Edwards about why we play. And this is from professional football. Am I playing it, Mackenzie, or you? I'm running it. Okay. So stay tuned for about a minute of entertainment about why do we play, Herm. All
Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.
Oops.
Now, there is a line that you don't say very often, but I need to ask you, what was the name of your book?
You play to win the game.
Oh, that's what it was.
I don't say it with that emotion anymore.
Yeah, we actually have plenty of time. Do you guys have a lot?
We can stop this one. Okay, let me get my presentation back. Okay. Well, okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. So passionate display of how passionate coaches can get when talking about play. Okay, so at this point, I wanted to open it up to a couple, questions for all of you, in terms of, what you just place it in the chat box if you can. I know you're sitting there relaxing, but I don't want to lose you with information. Just a little bit. Throw in there two things. One, how have you found some sense of play in the quarantine? And secondly, what's your biggest struggle in having lost a season? So just go ahead and throw that in the chat box, and Mackenzie might share a few examples that come up.
Yeah, and while you are doing that, we'd love to get an idea of who's joining us tonight. So a poll is going to pop up on the screen. And if you just can indicate how you identify, that would be great, so that Richard can see who is joining us, whether it's athletes, coaches, family members. Let me know.
I see Marshall just posted Nerf basketball around the yard. Yeah, and that's something that we're going to get to a little bit later, like creative games, things that you may have played as a kid all of a sudden are coming back. I know all of a sudden my son and I are picking up baseball cards. I'm sure they have zero value these days, but that and little games. We got Scott sharing about band workouts. Trying to keep up with the poll and chat at the same time. Okay, Eric said Danielle and I play basketball together. Yeah, a lot of walks going on, right? That's one thing they can't take away from us. All right, Marshall, baseball cards with the kids, and they're cool now. They're like on-demand cards that they have, like old school cards you can print out. Kate is talking about Zoom yoga, squash workouts. Nice. Franklin is doing cycling. And there's Glenn from up in Portland, Oregon, talking about Zoom workouts for teams. It's great. You get to see coaches showing off their dribbling skills or where they need to improve. And there's Roy talking about doing some philanthropy work, raising money, and figuring out where the needs are. I know we have Sarah on there. She's not in the chat, but talking about doing work for women's rugby. Okay, anyone on there struggles? Yeah, and of course, Glenn throwing in some mental training, right? This is a great opportunity to look at. It's one thing that there's Sarah throwing in men's rugby. So, right, what are we doing about the mental game? There is, you know, no matter what sport we play, no matter what our season is coming back, we have to be mentally prepared. I had MMA fighters on my podcast today, this coronavirus, right? How can you be ready to go out there and perform if you're not doing some of the things which I don't want to, you know, throw in towards we get to the end, but right, find an open basketball court, right? You can take shots. How many shots can you put up in a day? Can you dribble through cones? Can you dribble around? Oh, you guys are stars here. I'm talking to the right crowd. Okay. Fencer, right? How many fencers do you know, right? Working with the coach on Zoom, you know, how do you, okay, there's some questions for later on. How do I rev up the drive and stay motivated? So we're going to get to all that. Okay. Thank you everyone for all that. It looks like our, we've got most of the people responding to the poll, which is pretty good percentage here between athletes, coaches, parents, friends, just interested in the topic. Okay. And nice reflections about UFC without the people there. Yeah, it is pretty strange, and we'll share more about that later, but I have had a few MMA fighters in there, and that shows the grit of having to go prepare and be ready, whether or not there's a crowd or not, and staying prepared for the moment. Okay, well, pools are closed, no swimming. Oh, wow, that's a hard one.
So, Richard, I think the three who haven't responded to the poll are you, Mackenzie, and I.
Okay, very good. Put me in any category. So yes, pools are no closed. Wow, that's hard, especially if you're in parts of the country where people don't have a pool. I think in California, depending on social distancing, you're lucky enough to let you in a facility, but that is a truly hard one. Maybe some other people have some suggestions for that, but we're gonna move on with the presentation. Thank you for everyone being active and participating and sharing. You know, here we get to, right, here's the major challenge when you have a sudden loss. Okay, and there's Charlie Brown there giving it some, all of us maybe felt like that in some way.
Hey, Richard, can you reshare your screen for me? Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, no, thank you. Where did I go? It's not it. There we go. Thank you for the patience with my multitasking here. And great, more people are joining us as we go. So right here it is. We don't want to get too heavy into the clinical part of this, but at some point when you deal with a sudden loss, when things happen and change so quickly, these are kind of the stages of grief. And, you know, most of you have heard of these stages, maybe some of them, but the main point I want to make to you about any kind of grief you might go through, whether it be, you know, whatever stage or sport or place you are, is that these stages can be, so you may get to a place like we mentioned where you're angry, you were really looking forward to something, you had your training routine, you had access to your facility, you have your plan, the things that make athletes strong and focused now becomes really hard to hang on to those same elements of preparation and routine. So you may get to a place of acceptance. You may say, okay, I get it. You know, some people are saying, fine, I got an extra year. I can go take this as an extended recovery. I've never gotten this kind of recovery before. I may take off a month or two and, you know, do some other, I might start running, jogging, taking on other kind of health or boost my nutrition, find ways to get stronger with a personal trainer. And then you may find yourself slipping back when you get a different piece of news through the other stages. So not too much there, but important. You know, sometimes when I see this, when someone says it to me, I kind of identify and go, oh, that's maybe where I'm at. And just seeing this sometimes is just to really generalize that every single person who goes through a sudden experience like this, like we've been through over the last 3-4 months, is going to go through something. So that's the real concern. As adults, we obviously have each other. We have organizations such as Maccabi supporting us, providing speakers, education, information that have been connecting with us more regularly, which is amazing. But when we look at our teens and we look at athletes, especially if you're disconnected from your organization or families, anything like that, it can be harder. So it really speaks to some of the things I'll get to towards the end, but the importance of realizing what a network you can be. And maybe if you, take it upon yourself to reach out to teammates, make more time available for your teen or collegiate athletes who speak or express these emotions, and they may be more comfortable showing them to you through different forms of emotions and uncomfortable, expressions. But this could be what's behind some of those behaviors. Lost control. So here we have, right? Great graphic, right? We're all kind of jumping out of a plane, and I don't know, which one are you in the picture, right? You got a guy there kind of floating on his own, looking for a hand to grab onto, but we're all looking to find a way out of this together to make a smooth landing and to use each other to figure out and navigate to the next transition, whether it be through 2020 and beyond. So how do we cope? How do we adjust to loss? Some people were already sharing, right, really ingenuitively on their creativity. What are some new games, board games, sports and classics? What are some things you can do, right? Maybe you make up some drills in the driveway, right? One-on-one. We'll get to later specific scenarios you can create to mimic game scenarios, but making it fun. For me, it was a delve into reading. If you want to pick up a great book on leadership, you want to pick up John Wooden, what parts of the mental game, I'll reference her later, Carrie Cheadle. There's amazing things on character, on learning how to be a high performance athlete with enhanced mental skills that you can use right now and use it as a period of study. So we have some solar workouts. People have been great with Zoom drills, Glenn on there, basketball coach. We got ball control, using the ladder, dribbling. These are things we can do with a couple of buckets and a piece of wood on top. Reassessing your timelines and goals, right? We do have to do a little bit of taking a look at, are we going to have a season? If not, what are some things that I can continue to work on that are in my control? What are some things we can do just to keep skill building and growing? And like I mentioned, reaching out to teammates, the guy who's the last guy on the bench, still, he matters. If you're a team, the things that you do right now to build your team are going to carry you forward. And these are the kind of little things that champions do. So, in the Maccabi spirit, you don't know which person right now with the stigma out there had a family member affected by coronavirus. Maybe they've been affected and they don't want to share it publicly because of so much stigma, or fear that people won't want to talk to them. So that's a whole secondary part of this coronavirus and ways people have reacted internally when they're afraid, and the way that they label or judge others. So reaching out and just making it safe to connect over an old memory or an old story, it's always safe. And changing mindset to control the controllables, right? What are the things that we can control right now, day to day? Can I get a workout in? Can I get a short run in? Can I go, shoot some hoops? Where can I work on? Can I get a hold of old game tape? Can I watch YouTube videos of the professionals doing the sport that I love and look at what they do great or what they've done wrong? So all areas where we can continue to improve. So here we go, right? Here's the nugget. What's the opportunity in all of this, right? We know what the gloom is. We know what the challenge is. So what is your sport now? Well, your sport now may be recovery. How am I going to address nutrition, rest, right? Tracking smaller habits like we met, not using every period of downtime to go to the refrigerator, keeping your eye on calorie intake and burn. Address your strengths and weaknesses. If I'm, not strong with my right hand or left hand, maybe it's a time now you can work on that. And like we just talked about, how can you exemplify being that good leader or a teammate? Maybe that's not something you've ever asked of yourself, But in a time of crisis like this, the cream rises to the top. You can try a new behavior. So if it's Snapchatting, if it's Instagram messaging, whatever your chosen way of connecting to people and getting out of your clique within your clique, whatever aspect of getting uncomfortable to grow your team and be better, now's a great opportunity. When I look back at my Maccabi experiences, the best teams I were on was when I could be a starter one day and the 10th man another day, and I didn't care because I love my coach, I love my team, and you know, I love the experience. So trying to create that, you alone are in charge of creating that experience, you know, or being an experience where you're just frustrated until you get another chance to play, and then you're only focused on the result of winning. That's a much more frustrating path. So the path of taking some control, identifying what are the new roles I want to take, that can be a more meaningful path. That may be a difficult exercise to sit down and do with yourself or with your coach, but it's the more rewarding one. And the great book, if you've ever want to pick it up on Amazon, you write Who Moved My Cheese by Spencer Johnson. So a lot of people right now don't deal with change very well. Adults, you know, people with 5 PhDs and CEOs, nobody deals with change really well. And it's, so, right. And motivation is the first thing to go. When I don't know what's happening, I don't know how to put my energy. So we may see in a lot of athletes, we may see, you know, right, extra time to play video game. My sleep schedule is awry, staying up till, you know, 3 a.m. Don't really have an outlet for a lot of this energy, and I'm being told to stay home. And accountability partners. Main thing that I get from team is having other people to play with and be with, and it gives me motivation just in the human connection. So, you know, and then there's all the fun stuff that goes along with it, media binging, and, you know, feeling where we need to pay attention to everything that's coming out, and all the uncertainty, right? So brings us to our next set of questions for all of you. Maybe some overlap with the first one, right? Where is your opportunity there? Take a minute, throw it in the chat. Through all of this right now, going forward, where's your opportunity in particular, as an individual, as an athlete, as a parent, as a coach? And what is one thing new or old that you've discovered or rediscovered during this time? And we'll take a minute and let people respond. I'm not seeing the chat bar. Oh, there we go. Thank you for the tips. Okay, we got Katie. She's staying on schedule, addressing physical strengths and weaknesses, more time learning and planning. Marshall's getting his jump shot back, trying to keep his kids excited. Anyone else? Yeah. Planks are required to earn the binge TV. That's creative, right? You want to get in front of Netflix all day, you got to do something physical. Yes, absolutely. More time with family. The joy of reading. Yes, yes, absolutely. All those books that were on my shelf that were only halfway done, they're on the list. Learning how to buffer a negative person. That's a very useful skill for working with teammates. Yes, so that doesn't mean, right, that we have to take on everything that everyone's going through, right? Everyone's going through something, so you can still be supportive and take actions and keep limits and take care of yourself. Absolutely. And podcasts, thank you so much. As someone who's putting out podcasts more than ever because people are actually available and saying yes. Great way to learn information or just laugh a little bit, bring a little levity. Okay, well, people are still entering comments. We'll keep moving and get to the good stuff. Thank you for everyone who's participating. There we go. So, right. So we get to the topic of support. This comes from, I mentioned earlier, Carrie Cheadle, right? The important thing for young athletes to think about when I'm looking for support, what are the different types of support that I'm looking for, right? We use this term very generally, okay? So, you know, your athlete may be looking for, or your child may be looking for emotional support. They may be looking for something tangible, you know, buy me some bands, right? I may need some way to access my training or weights from home, motivational, like we're talking about. They may need you to really help them. I think it was great whoever shared in there, right? Getting out there with them, you know, being really humble, playing the game with them, making the electronic time a reward, or you know, trying to turn it into some sense of an adventure. You know, for my young son, finding the hills that he could ride up and down, it was like really fun for him, motivating. He could ride a bike and he could conquer some new terrain. Now that there were less cars out there on the road, we haven't seen anything like this. Or informational, right? Can you help your athlete access some place to practice, some way to continue to practice or train? So these are ways in which we can be resources, you know, or if somebody's dealing with nutrition or recovery and they need specific techniques, these are ways in which, you know, we can be of support at this time. All right, so what if you are having trouble asking for support, right? Or asking if somebody's really hurting, you suspect something might be going on where it's, right, a little bit deeper. So couple different graphics here, right? Storytelling is a great way, you know, you're connecting, you're sharing about old stories of Maccabi, but you can be talking about what's going on without, you know, really saying, you know, what's exactly going on, but it's a way of opening up that you need that more support from your coach, or from a mentor, or from your parent, talking about what you heard, what you've experienced, you know, in the news. So these are ways in which we may be getting invitations to open up and listen a little bit deeper and figure out what people needs. And in general, if you're asking for support, right, it's a great way to also show gratitude. Your coaches are there, they're waiting, they're sitting at home. Like I mentioned, people want to feel useful and they want to be there for you in their roles, and they're also going through this change. So, right, great quote here, do not avoid asking for help. You know, sometimes we have too much pride. We think, I've always done it on my own. I've always been able to manage on my own. And it's very natural to be in a place where all of a sudden you're kind of humbled and need some support. So you can do a little bit of killing two birds with one stone, right? It's always nice to reach out to someone and reflect on, you remember what they did for you when you were struggling in a particular game, or when you had to get pulled out of a particular game at the last Maccabi. So sometimes by just, you know, expressing that appreciation, you also create the invitation for a continued mentor relationship or supportive relationship. Okay, so now we turn this, how do we turn this into strength, right? How do we turn this into building the next champion, right? So the things where we want to focus in terms of mental skills with athletes, right? You know, you are who you think you are. If you believe that you're a champion, then, you know, you need to live in line with those beliefs. So same thing, if I believe I'm, you know, I'm not doing anything, my season's over, I'm a failure, you start feeding into that, then that kind of creates your identity around that. So really checking what your thoughts are right now at this time. Body language, right? Being able to be honest with yourself in the mirror, right? I mean, some of it may be natural, right? We're adding weight, we may be eating more right now. And also, like, emotionally, what are we communicating? Am I losing confidence? Am I really discouraged? And again, some of these things are very natural right now, but it's good for you just to know where you're at, right? And to be able to tell your coaches, or teammates what you're going through. I'm feeling a little bit sad. I just can't let go of it. We were supposed to be at this tournament right now. So and imagery is a wonderful skill that we start to use, right? In terms of being able to see yourself at your next level, picturing yourself, and we'll get to different types of imagery here, so you can practice the speed and flow of play. You allow your body experience play as if you're watching yourself from outside. So that can kind of free yourself from some of the worries and clouds in your head, and see yourself at the actual next game, see yourself versus that opponent. If there's a team you always go up against, and that kind of creates the experience in your body as well, physiologically. So how can I improve my performance? If there's players participating today, right? Asking yourself these questions, right? What's my mission, right? What am I working on as an athlete? What do I want to achieve, personally and collectively? And how can I bring my focus today? All the gifts of mindfulness, one of the greatest gifts is quarantine, is our ability to use our minds to get ourselves to the moment. So the big question you want to ask yourself, how can I bring my focus to now? And thankfully, there are so many tools right now that if you can't be around your coaches, you cannot have them giving them pregame speeches. Headspace, I think, is free during the quarantine. Calm, 10% Happier was created by a news anchor who used to go through panic attacks and learned how to overcome them. And Insight Timer, right? These are all 3-minute, 1-minute meditations, things that can help you calm down, let go of some of the negative thoughts, and get back into a focus mentality. Practice in-game scenarios like we talked about. If you're a pitcher working, 3 balls, 1 strike, bases loaded, different situations like that. If you're lucky enough to be able to practice in different temperatures, if you can get out there when it's cold, when it's really hot, changing your elevations, things like that you may go through when you're playing in a foreign environment, or when you're going to the next Maccabi, and shot clock scenarios, 5 seconds on the shot clock, how are you going to get to your shot, that kind of a thing, and seeing yourself complete your moves. Those are creative ways to keep yourself in the moment. Coaches, some of the discussions suggested around asking your players about their mission, short and long-term goals, and what are the short and long-term processes to get there, and engaging that discussion. What can we do today, and what can we do this month? That's all we have right now, and what are some of the mental tools that might help you get to the present? So that athlete, that person, what they might respond to best. A couple that are famous go-tos of Chicago Cubs mental skills coach Ken Revisa, were what he calls the signal lights of performance. A lot of people know about it. Learning individually what it means. When am I green to go? When do I feel loose? And when is the time when I can get off the starting blocks? And when am I experiencing kind of a yellow light, like I need to slow down, my judgment's clouded, I need to step off the mound, the rubber, step back, take a breath. And red, when can I absolutely not go forward, or some sort of error or catastrophe happens. So, getting athletes to think along this kind of the 3 C's of control, commit, compete, and walk through that cycle within themselves, when they have to know when they're mentally ready to commit and when they're ready to compete and throw the next pitch or take the next free throw, right? There has to be a moment where they have within themselves of getting back into control over the so many uncontrollable moments that might happen within a performance. Okay, so what else? What are some other things maybe we can work on while we're at home? Right, 2-minute drill. What are some things we can do? Down by 7, 2 minutes to go. Simulating adversity, right? What do we do in these types of circumstances when they're not going our way? Shadow work, whether you're boxing, sparring, as if you have your opponent there with you, or thinking about what kind of shots they might be hitting. If you're going to be playing on clay, for instance, and you can get access to a court, trying to find that kind of environment that might help you prepare best. And improving, what mistakes can I identify that I make frequently? What adjustments do I need to make? And as we said earlier, always goes back to separating those controllables for the controllable, right? There may be only so much we can control, and that may change from month to month. Maybe we get more loosening of restrictions. Maybe you can do more for a period of time, and other things we just may not have all the information, and we can only be honest with that as parents and coaches. And that about concludes what I have for you today for the time we have. You got all the different sports there. I don't have a rugby player. Sorry, Sarah. So I'm going to leave you all with here's some resources. If you or your child are looking for, they're out there, you're an athlete, you need therapy resource, Open Path is great. They're seeing people like from $30 to $60 right now. Mindurance, I'm a coach on that platform. It's the first time that you can have like on-demand performance or stress management. So if your athlete is about to go into a meet or 30 minutes before and they want to speak to someone, there's also blogs on there and different tips for dealing with the circumstance that we're in from a host of different performance coaches. And so that could be a really great resource. You have the American Association for Sports Psychology, American Psychological Association. If something clinical of a deeper nature is going on, if there's, grief due to loss, somebody getting really sick, or just, underlying anxiety and depression has been accentuated at this time, we want people to have resources, and the talk line number is for a crisis. It's confidential. Anybody can call it anytime. And lastly, the COVID Coach is an app that was created, I believe, by the Veterans Administration. So you can use it on your phone, and there are some specific exercises on there, along the lines of mindfulness, deep breathing, getting you to calm down, really important tools in general, let alone as an athlete. And I think it's important to include it on there, even relationship conflict, because what family or relationship or roommate situation has not been tested by this crisis? So I think that about concludes. There's my contact information, and if anyone who's listened here needs to reach out further, I'm happy to avail myself of a free consult. But I think at this time, Mackenzie's going to open up for questions for the time we have left.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Richard. Just want to reiterate, we're happy to get you in contact with Dr. Richard. If you would like to discuss anything further, thank you for offering that free 20-minute consult. That's amazing. And now I'd like to just open the floor for people, if you have questions, to please post in the chat. We have gotten a lot of conversation through here, so I'm sorry if we haven't, if we passed one of your questions, but if you don't mind typing it again, that would be great. Howard, we can talk. I'll have to talk to Dr. Richard about sharing his slides and the information, but we will get back to you. The recording will actually be, it's being recorded and it will be shared out as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to be a resource for anyone, whether if your athletes prefer using Facebook, Instagram, whatever way they prefer to communicate, just for quick tips on whether it just be for a simple tip on a resource or a book to read, or, if it's something more clinical, probably going to have to refer you to your local provider. But a lot have opened up to telehealth these days with continuing challenges around opening up offices and whether or not you have to wear a mask or things like that. Okay, well, Scott asked a funny question. Jordan's a question, yeah. So what's your best advice for someone who struggles with mental health issues during the pandemic? Great question, and I think that's really the second wave, at least, in the LA Times we're talking about, especially for adolescents. This could be there could be some lingering issues. If you have a provider, I know a lot of people are reticent to open up to working with telehealth, but I can tell you that you can still develop the same quality therapeutic alliance. So please, maintain that, or use some of these resources to find someone you can speak to. Some of the resources today are more for performance and lighter end, but I think the sooner you reach out, the better. The first, even if it's not the same as going to an office and being in this private, secure space, having someone at the same time every week that's devoted to you, that is solely there for you, that is not in your family, that is not a part of the dynamic, is a key. And you know what? Your medical doctors mostly are available online now. Now you can reach out to them, and they can also, confidentially respond to you about if you have a history and there's any kind of medications involved or recommendations. They're the best ones to answer that kind of a question. So, yeah, the kids are very anxious. Thanks, Kate, for sharing that. Yeah, so that's staff, a student. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I know a lot of the schools are trying to do the best, even the highest quality private education schools with school psychologists on staff are trying to do their best. There's just an overwhelming situation here, and there may not be the resources. So being willing to reach out to, whether it be Open Path, something sliding scale, or your insurance provider, and find out even Medicare has allowed for telehealth at this point, or phone sessions. They've taken all the restrictions off, so there's really no limitation for who you can work with. That would depend on the state you're in, whether or not your providers can speak to you from different states. But developing a relationship right now with someone that you would like to work with, or you see your child wanting to work with after the crisis, might be a good step. I've had several calls like that. So, but I think it's great that you're reaching out and tending to your mental health needs and not overlooking it in any way. I mean, any kind of situation, any kind of national crisis, circumstance out of your control is bound to bring these things up in everybody. So the first thing I want to do is normalize that for everybody. Yeah, thank you, Jordan. So yes, Howard, we'll have a recording available. And anyone else have any questions? Sorry, I can't answer particular mental health questions, but I'm amazed with the ways people are maintaining their performance and workouts through all the various means. I know Orange Theory has workouts online. They have me lifting pots and flower pots and pans, so water jugs. So it's been real fun in some ways, but certainly we're here to support anyone who's gone through more serious concern. We do know people have been sick and recovered. They still need to reflect on their experience of resilience, and I'll be having some podcasts coming out this week with MMA fighters who come out and share their experience with overcoming Corona and then going on really teaching you not to be afraid. I think there is something here about learning about how we process fear and how we deal with preventative health. There's a lot of lessons to be learned for our athletes, families, and I thank all of you in the Maccabi community. I look forward to whenever we get back to playing in the next Maccabi games, and I'm glad that we have an organization that keeps us all tied together.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Erd. I have one last question. Somebody is curious to see and know if you think esports as a way, it could be a way to accomplish some of what you spoke about too, or if it works with any esports athlete.
Of course, there's always one question that hits you right in the gut. I'm a parent. I've got, two kids who are very active, and the one that keeps claiming he's in a tournament, and he feels like he's a captain of a football team. You can hear him calling out who needs to flank left and who goes right. As a parent, it's a difficult shift in some ways, and I prefer when we have sports season to balance it out, but I love what's being done with esports. You see professional athletes getting together. I think as long as there's a balance, I think as you move, you get circulation, there's exercises up. I have a podcast up from a year ago with Dr. Levi, who shares exercises for your children. I know you can get a lot of these online too, you know, for your eyes or your hands. I think even practice like the Queen's Wave and, you know, things like that to avoid carpal tunnel. And so, I mean, I think there's so much unknown about how to care for your body and your mind. I do want to be sensitive to the amount of bombardment of stimuli that's coming in when you're in that environment. So again, I think everyone needs a little bit of quiet, mindful time. So I think if you're balanced out, I found in my family, you know, if you're getting the exercise, you're getting the face-to-face interaction, mealtime, you know, that it's not becoming an identity. I think esports is obviously it's growing internationally, connects us to people from across the globe. The potential to do things, you know, through sports and through virtual reality rather. Yes, and Kate, yes, the biggest conflicts in the home, and it means different to each occupant. That's very true, depending on how the parents are raised. And I'd like to put it, you know, the rainbow on that would be, it opens up a discussion. I've gotten to know more about how, you know, my wife was raised, and have real discussions about monitoring the time. It's harder to be the policeman monitoring all these things right here and to be doing your job. But I think in the bigger picture, creating that shared family structure, where are the community responsibilities? So many great books that, you know, even the value of scrubbing the pots and pans, making the meals together, are things we've gotten away from in my home. And so building those things back in and earning your time, whether you're a Nike executive who I interviewed last week or a child wanting to get to your games, we kind of have to earn our play and earn our place in our relationships and in our community and in our tribe. So a lot of work I do is no matter, you know, is on helping people figure out where is their ecosystem that they exist within. And right now it's gotten smaller. So the beauty of that is if there was a fracture, it's going to come up and you get a chance to work on it and you get to heal. So I hope it's making me a better parent. I hope it's helping me to be a little bit more patient. Even my 3 children as athletes, I have to coach them and relate to them very differently. My daughter does not want my advice. She does not want to hear anything from me. She wants me to, you know, but that doesn't mean that we still don't have a discussion around what time she needs to be outside and how often per week. She'd like to set those goals herself. Other children need those times set for them. So great question about esports and the online environment as we go forward. And depending on the amount of time, we're going to be stuck with more of our time indoors. Great devices out there, by the way, where you can set family times and screen time, and that may be the easiest solution. When the internet goes off for everybody, you can panic for a few minutes, and then we have to figure something out.
Well, thank you again so much, Dr. Oelberger. We appreciate your time. I think everybody can agree that this session was very informative, and you know, if you do want to reach out to Dr. Richard, his email is up on the screen, but if you don't catch it in time, you can reach out to me, Mackenzie Mager. My email is at mmager@maccabiusa.com, and I'd be happy to connect you to Dr. Richard. Just really quickly, I want to let you all know about some upcoming events that we have in the pipeline. Tomorrow at 8 p.m., the Maccabi USA Sports Show will have Don Garber and Jeff Agus from the MLS with a special guest host, Don Kent, who will be joining Donna Orander and Arnie Fielkow. On Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we will have the American Israeli bobsled pilot, Dave Nichols, will be joining us for a session. Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, we have a happy hour going on. So if you feel you know, like you'd love to reconnect with some people or meet new people as a part of Maccabi USA, please come join our happy hour. And then Saturday at 9 p.m. Eastern, we will be having a Havdalah hosted by Rabbi Shira Rosenblum, who is an alumni of ours, and we're looking forward to all of that. And you can also learn more about upcoming events on our website at maccabiusa.com. Thank you again so much, everybody. We appreciate your time and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you, everybody.